good evening, good afternoon. I am Luca Andriani, Senior Lecturer in Economics at Birkbeck University of London and co-director of the Centre for Political Economy and Institutional Studies, still at Birkbeck University of London. What is the paper about? Well, first of all, thank you very much for inviting me here to talk about this work titled on civic engagement and socio-economic proximity in urban area. This is a work that has been recently published in the journal Spatial Economic Analysis and co-authored with Dr. Andrea Filippetti from the Italian National Research Council and Dr. Pier Paolo Angelini from the research group of the analysis of economic policies in Rome. Now, before starting talking about the paper, please let me open a window of the idea of civic engagement and how we define it here. Civic engagement here refers to people's involvement in voluntary activities. So, looking at the three biggest Italian cities, Milan, Rome, and Naples, in this study, we investigated whether living very close to people with different levels of income and education affects someone's willingness and decision to engage with their local community. The idea for this research came from the importance to understand why some people are more inclined in being involved in their community. It's key for a democratic society to have citizens embracing values of civic spirit, inclusiveness, and getting along with others. However, in recent years, scholars looking especially at well-established democratic countries have been noticing a clear decline in civic engagement, particularly in big cities. We also know that having different backgrounds and experiences can make a community stronger and more innovative, but at the same time, these differences can also create tensions and cause people to separate themselves from others who are different. So, for example, if you think about socioeconomic factors such as income and education, these can influence individuals' preferences, habits, and how they relate to others. So we wanted to study how living in diverse communities, like big cities in Italy, affects people's tendency to be engaged in voluntary activities. Our study about our research key findings showed some interesting outcomes. Firstly, we looked at where people with different income and education level live in the three cities. We found that in the central areas of the three cities, people with higher incomes and education tend to live near others who are similar to them. And secondly, we also looked at mapping civic engagement, and we found that this is spread out across different neighborhoods without concentrating on specific areas. However, Naples represents an exception because the central parts of the city, close to the sea, register more people involved in community activities. Thirdly, we investigated whether living near people with different levels of income and education affects someone's likelihood of being civically engaged. And we found that when someone lives near people who are different from them in terms of education and income, they tend less to be engaged in the community activities. A complementary results as well that are quite interesting that we found is that people who trust fellow citizens more are also more likely to be involved in voluntary activities. And lastly, when we compare the three cities, we found that living in Naples, which has a lower average income per capita compared to the other two cities, increases the chances of being civically engaged. This is interesting because this goes against some traditional studies on social capital that says that social capital or civic engagement is more spread in the north of Italy rather than in the south. But it also aligns a lot with research showing that when people in a community rely on each other for economic resources, they tend to help and support each other even more. So in Naples, for example, the labor market relies on informal networks and social connections, and this creates a strong interdependence among its citizens. How can this finding be useful too is a very good question. And honestly speaking, these findings are important for different groups of people. Firstly, policymakers and community organizations that can use this information to think about how they plan cities and neighborhoods. They need to make sure that diversity doesn't lead to separation, but instead promotes inclusiveness. It's important to find a balance between the positive effects of diversity, like economic growth and innovation, and the challenges that come with it, like social tensions. These findings also show that people's behaviors are influenced and affected by the characteristics of the communities where they live. So when people share similar norms or they have a sense of community belongings, there is more social cohesion, of course. Moreover, diversity can indeed actually be a driving force for economic growth because it encourages creativity and innovation. So policies that promote integration, tolerance, investment in public services, and reducing inequalities are essential in diverse urban environments. In summary, if I may say, these findings can help policymakers, community organizations, and I would say society as a whole to understand the importance of creating inclusive communities and designing policies that support diversity while addressing social challenges. Thank you very much.